Welcome and thank you for attending today's webinar, Turbocharge Your Ticketing System. We are recording today's webinar. A link will be emailed to participants and a copy will be available on our website. All participants will be muted until the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. The drawing for the iPod Touch will be held following the Q&A session, and attendees must be present to win. The winner of the November 18th Turbocharge contest will also be announced at the presentation's closed. Beginning the presentation today will be ISOdx President, TJ Felice. TJ?
Thank you, Val. I'd like to thank all the participants for choosing to spend a portion of your day with us today. As Val said, my name is TJ Felice, and I'll be providing a brief overview of ISOdx. Following my overview, Mike Cush will provide an online demonstration of ISOdx. I'd like to encourage all the participants to use the chat feature to submit questions throughout our presentation. We'll address the questions during the Q&A portion of the webinar following Mike's product demonstration. To begin today, I'd like to talk a bit about who uses ISOdx. Our customers are independent software vendors, hardware manufacturers, or companies whose business depends on providing support in IT environments, such as business process outsourcers and managed service providers. Companies in these three segments provide support for applications or systems, but as the complexity of the environments these products are a part of increases, so does the complexity of the support issues. So what are you actually supporting? Your customer's IT ecosystem is comprised of a tightly integrated combination of hardware and software components. We liken this ecosystem to an iceberg, with the above the waterline portion representing the application or system you're responsible for supporting, and the below the waterline portion representing the myriad of IT components that make up the bulk of your customer's IT environment. As the IT ecosystems become more complex and more tightly integrated, it's becoming more and more common for items below the waterline to be at fault for causing issues with the applications or systems you're responsible for supporting, the above the waterline supported product. Support technicians today face the daunting challenge of understanding the relationship between their supported application or system and the below the waterline components that all must be aligned to work together in harmony. Investigating and resolving these complex support issues can be time-consuming, painful, and can negatively impact customer satisfaction. When a customer calls in for support, they believe that they have a problem. Whether or not they actually do, they believe they do, and they want it resolved as quickly as possible, regardless of the root cause or who's ultimately at fault. Let's say that you're supporting a specific software product and the root cause ends up being a network issue. Without the ability to solve the problem, even one that's not your fault, cases remain open. As this diagram illustrates, resolving problems quickly reduces cost, minimizes risk, and has the highest level of customer satisfaction. That's pretty obvious. When cases linger, the overall cost to your organization increases. Think of the last difficult case you dealt with and the amount of time spent at the various levels of your organization. The higher we go in the pyramid, the more significant the negative impact. Public relations is listed as the highest level of risk in this diagram, and it can manifest itself in many ways. For example, we have a number of customers in the public safety and healthcare arenas where lives are literally at stake with regards to the time in which support calls are resolved. Wouldn't it be easier for us, better for our companies, and more satisfying for our customers to resolve problems as they come in the door? So what is ISOdx? ISOdx is a forensic software tool that enables organizations to resolve technology support issues faster than ever before. ISOdx proactively captures information above and below the waterline, dramatically improving the mean time to resolution for technology support issues. As this slide depicts, ISOdx provides 5 main functional capabilities. The first is documentation. Documentation is simply the process of gathering accurate information about the state of a device at a given time. Now, it sounds simple, but it's actually pretty compelling. Most of the upfront time with any support case is spent collecting information from the end user. The process of documenting the system information that ISOdx uses eliminates the need for the back and forth exchange with the end user. Information is captured and there's no worries about multiple versions of the truth. Analytics is the process of automating human activity to examine data and take action as necessary. This can be exemplified with the simple example of making sure a software version is installed correctly or confirming that minimum system requirements like disk space or memory are indeed intact. Troubleshooting is the process where ISOdx supports a technology support person's ability to compare 2 points in time. This can be done by comparing information collected about the same device at 2 different points in time, or comparing 2 different points in time from 2 different devices. Say a production server that's operating as it should and a production server that's experiencing issues. ISOdx offers robust comparison and search capabilities that make it very easy to identify what changed down to the character, making nebulous, complex problems much easier to solve. Proactive alerts is the process where ISOdx looks for specific conditions and will automatically take action when those conditions are found. For example, sending an email message or making a configuration file change when a certain state is found to exist on a device. Finally, enterprise reporting. ISOdx will provide visibility of key attributes from your entire customer base. For example, giving you a report on how many customers are running each version of your software. So how does ISOdx work? Again, we don't have a lot of time on this webinar to delve into the depths of the process, but a simple 3-step process can be displayed here. Snapshots of supported devices are taken in one of 3 ways. They can be scheduled, they can be taken manually, or they can be triggered by some event that occurs on a device. Information about the device's hardware, software, operating system, along with any custom content you'd like to capture about your specific product is collected for those moments in time and are sent to the ISOdx server for storage and analysis. The ISOdx server can store a number of snapshots, typically 30, for each supported device. These snapshots contain the forensic information about each device. Users of ISOdx can access information directly from the ISOdx host by using the ISOdx portal, or they can have ISOdx generate detailed reports that are proactively sent to staff, or ISOdx can be integrated with any ticketing or help desk system, for example, Salesforce or Remedy, to populate information directly into a system that your team is already familiar with and is using today. It's important to note that the information captured by ISOdx can be used by your organization for much more than resolving support issues. For example, information captured by ISOdx can be used to streamline the handoff between the implementation team and the support team after a new customer installation is completed. It can be used to ensure that your customers are in compliance with the number of licenses that they purchased and are currently using. It can be used to evaluate how your customers are using your application or system so that future enhancements can be appropriately prioritized. It can also be used to develop a much more proactive approach to providing support by notifying customers that a known issue has been found in their environment before they call with a support issue. Again, simple examples here would be low server disk space, a system file has been changed, or software upgrade was attempted but not completed successfully. In short, ISOdx can dramatically change the way your company provides technical support. We don't have a lot of time on this webinar to delve into the benefits, but I'd like to just talk through a few here quickly. By having documented information when a support call comes in, being able to compare 2 points in time, root cause can be identified faster than ever, and documented proof about the changes made on the system can be offered to the customer. By combining the documented information with ISOdx analytics, cases can be resolved faster than ever. In fact, many of our customers have reported a reduction in calls because customer behavior has changed as a result of using ISOdx. In short, the customers know that any changes they make to the system are being captured. On the left side here, these statistics are pretty compelling. A number of our customers have reduced their mean time to resolution by over 92% and improved their CSAT by as much as 300% as a result of using ISOdx. Obviously, every situation is different, And if you'd like to discuss how ISOdx applies to your specific situation, please contact us. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mike, who can give us a demonstration of ISOdx. Mike?
Thank you, TJ. Give me just a moment here to application for the demonstration. This webinar today is primarily about how to turbocharge your ticketing system. In this brief demonstration, what I'd like to do is give you a brief example of how you would integrate this into your ticketing system to provide this level of detail to your support staff, be it a level 1 or even perhaps engineering and development. In this example, we have shown, or we will be showing an example within Salesforce integration. But a key point I want to make here is that our open standards SDK and API will allow you to essentially integrate this with any application that you choose. Now to get started, let's go ahead and go into and work through a case. Okay, let's say I'm a level 1 support person and a case came in. I'm going to go ahead and click on the case. Okay, a couple integration points I want to briefly talk about because ISOdx actually stores all this information in this core data warehouse. The linkage point between Salesforce and the ISOdx data warehouse is the account name here. So we know this is global media, and you also have the ability to track information about any device within that facility, in the global media facility. Let's say these are all the servers that are part of the ecosystem that we're responsible to support. Okay, I'm going to pick the machine that the customer told me was having problems. And down here we actually indicate that there is a problem with connecting to the corporate VPN. Now traditional support would now dictate a lot of back and forth between my level 1 support person and the client. Neither side likes that process and it takes a lot of time. So what ISOdx will allow you to do is after you put this information into the ticketing system, you can click right into the ISOdx detail about that particular customer environment. So now I can actually give my customer time back that he or she deserves back in their normal job, and I can get to resolving the problem. Now, I'm going to L1 tab here within the Salesforce interface, basically gathering information directly out of the ISOdx data warehouse pertaining to the system in question. Okay? So let's say part of my workflow for level 1 is to simply get an overview of the system. I know the particular system model number, the OS version, the service pack, many other things are shown on this screen here. But the point is, any information that your level 1 staff needs as part of their workflow can be immediately provided to them error-free without any interaction with the client. Okay, that's simple documentation that TJ alluded to earlier. Now let's go into a little bit more detail. Another point that ISOdx can actually help a lot of issues within the level 1 environments are, let's say for example, there's a minimum specification that has to be met for the software to run accurately. Okay, and here's a simple report called Software Minimum Specifications, and on the right there you see where certain tests pass or fail. And it's immediately apparent to a level 1 person exactly where the minimum specs are not met. Okay, so that's more of an analytical kind of information that we can provide back to the level 1 team that can make life a lot easier. How many times have we gone out and asked a customer whether or not they had A, B, or C, and they told us, in fact, they really didn't have it? Well, now there's no more of that question back and forth. You have every piece of information you could ever possibly want or need. Okay, so let's get back to the issue at hand. It was a VPN problem, and in this level 1 tab, we basically have some triage reports. Again, this could be built out any way for your particular workflows, but let's say that that was a corporate application that we're supporting. I mean, a corporate network application that we were supporting. So our level 1 person, as part of their workflow, would go into the corporate network, and it would take them into a change report based on corporate network applications having changed. You notice that there is one file object that changed, and a level 1 person could quite readily find out exactly what's going on with this VPN in just a couple clicks. We talked about a little earlier about the value of comparative change comparison to find out root cause. Well, you notice very quickly here that my level 1 person now has the visibility down to the character to find out that the user basically just transposed a couple of characters in this configuration file. Okay, so we're talking root cause down to the character quite readily. Now, let's go ahead and hit another case. and it'll take it down a little bit different path. This just happens to be a different case. I'm not going to go through the little details again. But again, we have another problem here where the OpenOffice application will not launch. Once again, my level 1 staff with limited knowledge of the customer's environment before they click this ISOdx button can very quickly go through their normal standard workflows and find out exactly what's going on. So, for example, maybe corporate application is one of the triage elements that we've put in place as part of the level 1 workflows. And what this does is it says that, yes, OpenOffice is installed. It's version 3.2.905. And we know that this DLL fails our test as a known good installation of OpenOffice. Again, this is true analytics. What normally happens in this sort of environment is that we don't know what the root cause is. We end up blowing things away, reinstalling, and never knowing what caused it. Now, this is a very, very common problem that we're illustrating here, where a lot of our customers never knew this ever was the cause, but things like this would be caused by, for example, antivirus applications being running on the system, perhaps during an update, when you update a piece of software, as a simple example. These are the very, very difficult things to do, and we're allowing a level 1 skilled person the ability to solve these very, very deep problems, okay? And we have root cause. So now, once my level 1 person can identify something as, hey, this DLL does not match a known good OpenOffice 3.2.905 application install, the remediation technique may be, Mr. Customer, can you reinstall 3.2.905 or 9502? And we'll do another verification once that's complete, okay? We also may actually take this information and forward it back to development and engineering and let them know that perhaps they just updated to this release, this DLL did not get updated, and now development and engineering have visibility in perhaps an installer problem, let's say, okay? So it gives you a lot of the unknown issue data that you need to create more known issues that are a lot less costly and a lot lower risk to your business to solve early on. Okay, I want to go into one last example, and this is going to be a little bit more in detail, but again, we're not going to get very technical on this call today. It's really just to show you some high-level aspects of the integration here between your ticketing system and the data that ISOdx collects on your behalf. In this case, we have a SQL Server backup job failure. And the nightly SQL Server backup job failed last night. Need to find out what's going on because the backups need to be rerun. This is a risk mitigation problem. Okay. Again, I could go into the ISOdx detail without going back into my customer base. And let's say my level 1 person exhausted their abilities within the data that we provide. It's part of their workflow. They can't figure anything more out. What would happen is a level 2 would then take the case and come over to this side and perhaps say, you know what, I'm a level 2 person, I'm a bit more savvy, I'm just going to go into the depths of the information that I know about, and I think I have a hunch on what could be causing this problem, so I'm just going to go ahead and dig into it. Okay? So for level 1, we have change reports as an example here. And where we have system state changes, level 2 person would go into here, and let's say that the hunch of this level 2 person is something related to the firewall. Maybe there's a firewall change, and that's my initial hunch, and I'm going to find out what's going on with the firewall. We notice there's a firewall state. These are in alphabetical order. Firewall state aspect of the tool that gathers information, and we want to know how that changes over time. Okay, so between the last snapshot and the more recent one, I want to know exactly how they're different. So let's say the left version here is the known working, and the right is the current state where it's not working. You notice that there are some firewall rules that exist in the older release that don't exist in the newer release. Well, that might be a tip-off to say, hey, maybe these rules are beneficial to the backups. But if you scroll this back up, a level 2 person would notice that the operational mode is disabled anyhow. So the firewall is not even on. Okay? So let's go back in. My first hunch was incorrect. So now a level 2 person would say, okay, now let's check the services on the machine and find out how those may have changed. You know, there are several lines in this output that have changed over time, but to save time and not go into too much detail from an engineering perspective, a level 2 would eventually get to this line down here. It was the 4th change. And you notice that the SQL Server Express service logon credentials changed from NT Authority Network to local system. Now, I personally can attest that we have seen this problem happen many, many times at customer sites where nobody ever could figure it out. And the simple fact is ISOdx can provide event log details, but the event logs are only as good as the developers that wrote the errors into the event logs. If we have any technical folks on the line today, you may understand what I'm trying to say there is that the event log may say there was an error, and that's about all you get. Now, this is actually giving you root cause to know that when the backups didn't run, they couldn't run because they could not copy the files to a network share because the credentials were changed from NT Authority Network to local system. Okay, so there's a tremendous amount of information that you can provide your teams. And I'm going to explain it this way before I finish up here. The level 1 staff, you're going to want to obviously provide perhaps workflow elements that are traditional workflow items that they deal with today. And we gather the information, and we can also provide the analytics to make their jobs easier. If, in fact, the problem and the unknown under the waterline kind of thing comes up, where you may need to escalate that to a level 2 or perhaps level 3 or even deeper, those people at every step of the way are going to have all the information they could ever possibly need or want during that support process to know how to solve that problem very, very quickly without ever going back to the customer multiple times to gather more information. Just one more point I want to make here as we talk about the ecosystem and the below the waterline. Virtually every single company I talk to, and I've talked to many, many support organizations over the past few years, one of the things that I hear a lot about is certainly the back and forth between the client and my support team is very challenging. That was about 80% of the call time in one of my customers that I can remember off the top of my head. But consider this. When you think about the ecosystem, and let's say you have a multi-tiered application, one which requires a front-end web server, application services, you also may have a back-end database service. Let's say the person calling in is simply responsible for the application, but they're not responsible for the database tier. Well, that's where ISOdx comes in. Remember the drop-down in the Salesforce screen that we were talking about earlier? You can actually pick whatever tier of the environment very quickly to find out what's going on. And what this does is it eliminates, the person Joe who called in just for the application. He's not the DBA. I don't have to call the DBA to get the information from the database layer. I have it within ISOdx and then integrated right into the ticketing system. So just think about just having that information, bottom line, would save a tremendous amount of time. That's the conclusion of my demonstration. What I'm going to do is hand it back to Valerie here. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Mike. We're going to now unmute the phones for questions. Does anyone have a question for either Mike or TJ?
Hello?
Okay, we hear you now.
Yeah, hi Mike. Can you show an example of kind of what you can see from a hardware standpoint within a system? Just real quick, we've got a couple of folks here and we tend to deal more with hardware issues than software issues.
Okay, let me get back over here. So here's an example where, because OEMs are one of the markets that we service, and this was a simple example where an OEM says, I'm responsible for the physical hardware. And what I did is I clicked on a firmware analysis tool that does some analytics on the hardware in which this OEM is responsible for. And it says, hey, this is the version of the firmware that's currently installed in the left column right here, in the middle column I should say. And here's the version that's currently available on the OEM's website as a simple example. And that's just a visual example to show you that, but let me go back and try to explain a little bit more. One major aspect of what ISOdx is about is that it's a platform which allows you to gather any information that's machine generated. So if the information is readily available on the system through the operating system, we can gather it with ISOdx. To give you an example, Hitachi Data Systems and their global labs are one of our customers. One of the things that they struggled with are simply serial numbers. Give me the serial number of all these systems. Well, we devised a mechanism for pulling the serial number off all the chassis components, all the boards, and providing them for every single disparate OS platform that they had in their lab, from Windows to AIX to HPUX. So quite literally, anything's possible. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. And you can actually get it to run certain script commands as well to look at kind of the actual underlying components within a system, correct?
Yes. So the question about scripts and whatnot, yeah, we support any language. Let's say, for example, your support team has a myriad of tools that you use today. One of the benefits of ISOdx is that we support any language, scripting platform, or what have you. So any effort and cost you've already invested into tools, we can simply add those into ISOdx in a matter of minutes. If you don't have those tools today, we're very good at creating those tools, and we're also very good at teaching people how to create their own tools that are very, very specific to their business that they deal with on a daily basis. Right. Did that answer your question?
These would be kind of, yeah, these would be like an HPUX script that would get launched, or something on an EMC box.
Right. Right. So any scripts that you have already, we just automate those, be it on an HPUX box. We can also crawl into storage arrays, solid state devices, anything with a network connection to it. We have methods of getting into those devices and using the native interfaces to get any information that you want out of them.
Okay.
All right.
So
great question.
I'm sorry, this is Scott Crosby. How does this work? I mean, is there a client that's loaded on each one of the nodes that are being monitored or viewed by ISOdx? I mean, I don't quite understand functionally how this works yet.
Okay, great question. And we avoided that for the short duration of this call, but I'll briefly explain it. On the open systems platforms that we support, I'll give you that as an example. There is a 2 megabyte executable, and it's not installed, and let me explain that briefly. The 2 meg executable can actually be part of your software, for example, and it just sits on the file system. It does not install anything. It is not an agent. It does not run 24/7. It does not open up port listeners. It only runs when it's told to run. And we have many ways of doing this, but the primary method of capturing this information in a proactive fashion is to simply schedule the ISOdx to run at periodic points in time. Our best practice is once per day. You could certainly have it run in an ad hoc manner. Mr. Customer, can you click on this link for me, or can you click on this button? Conversely, you can create an event-generated method in which you say, if this event occurs on the end device, please run the ISOdx binary on behalf of the client. So there are many ways to run it. I hope that answers your question. If it didn't, I don't know if we're going to provide, we'll probably do an email after this, so if there's follow-on dialogue that you want to get into, we certainly can do that.
Yeah, no, that was fine. That was fine. Now, what's a typical implementation effort like? I mean, in our environments, typically these are not systems that we're integrating or we're installing. We're walking into an environment that's already well established. In some cases, an infrastructure that may be 10+ years old, multi OEMs, multi platforms. Could be hundreds of devices in most cases. So this is an existing environment. How does a typical deployment like this work? I mean, I'm just trying to understand, is there a push method where you install your server and it pushes it out to the clients and the nodes, or does each one have to be touched?
Okay, that's a great question. And there is many ways that we do this. Since it is a simple binary, it's not an agent. There is something that you have to do to get it out there. And the majority of our customers deal with us, and we develop a strategy that works best for you and your client, because I suspect that you're talking about your client out there. And we have methods in which you basically, when you go in there, you basically can push it out to all those devices. Now, it depends on the platform and things like that, but we do have methods in which we can help you get it out to hundreds of devices very, very quickly.
Thanks, everyone, for your questions. I'm sorry we're out of time, and I wanted to make sure that we had time for the drawing for the iPod Touch. TJ, if you would do the honors, please.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the name that we have drawn is Rick Campbell of Corptax. Rick, are you on the line?
I am. Very cool.
Oh, well, congratulations, Rick. You can look forward to receiving your iPod Touch in the near future. And now we're happy to announce the winner of our Turbocharge campaign essay contest. For a winner that's going to receive a free ISOdx perpetual license. TJ?
Thank you, Val. Well, this was an exciting campaign for us. There were many great entries, and my team and I had a very difficult decision in selecting the best. But I'd like to thank everyone who entered the contest, and it's my pleasure to announce that the winning company is Symantec. I'd like to congratulate Symantec, and we'll be notifying them about how we move forward with the free ISOdx license. So thank you for everyone who participated in this campaign.
This concludes today's presentation. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, please send them to info@isodexsolutions.com. That's info@isodexsolutions.com. Thanks and have a great day.